Push record there. All right, welcome to the Canterbury Hockey Podcast, the Canterbury Coaches Box. I'm really excited today. It's our first episode, and I've got a great guest in Chris Leslie. Chris's playing background, played for the Black Sticks in 1984 to 1989. He also played for the New Zealand under-21s from 1980 to 1982. Not only did Chris play for the New Zealand, he obviously played for a lot of representative teams in South Canterbury, Marlborough, Wellington, Manawatu and Canterbury. And something I'm quite proud of is he also played for the Canterbury B team and captained that side as well. But Chris's coaching background and something that we're going to dive into today is pretty phenomenal. Chris coached he was the assistant coach of the Black Sticks from 1989 through into 2019, so spanning 21 years. Along that, he went to the Athens Olympics. He also went to the Beijing, London and Brazil Olympics as well. Along with that, the Commonwealth Games in Manchester in 2004, New Delhi 2010, Gold Coast in 2018. Chris also was an assistant coach of the New Zealand under-21 men in 1999, and also he was the head coach of the New Zealand under-21s in 2004, 2006 to 2013. Also coached the New Zealand universities, and then along with that, he also coached in Marlborough, Wellington and Canterbury, representative sides, club sides and school sides. So I'm really excited to have Chris on the podcast today. Chris, welcome.
Yeah, Morena Sanjay, thank you very much for the invitation, and it's great to be a guinea pig first up. So, let's hope it all goes well.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Now, I'm really fascinated to dive into a lot of things. Look, you've had a great career, but I'm really keen to dive into one of New Zealand's most successful women's hockey period between 2008 to 2019. So, in this time, the team was got the highest ranking for New Zealand, coming basically ranking third. Went to 2 Olympic semi-finals. Had some phenomenal players like Kayla Sharland, Stacey Mickelson. Also won the gold medal at the Com Games in the Gold Coast, World League Finals and Champions Trophy. So I'm really keen and fascinated to hear a lot about this period. So Chris, talk to me. What were some of the things as an assistant coach during this period that helped this team reach great heights? What were some of those things that really helped that side?
Yeah, well, it was a fantastic era for the women's game. There was a foundation laid before that. So, as you alluded to, my involvement was basically from Sydney 2000 to just after Beijing. That team that went to Sydney was a fantastic team, and there's if you look at the names on paper, your Mandy Smiths and your Anna Lawrences and people like that, they were household names. So there was quite a foundation laid back then. Moving forward, so in that Olympics in 2000, the team just missed out on competing for a medal. It sort of came down to a interesting decision late in the game against Spain, where they didn't go their way, so that put them out of medal contention. From there, the next team that was selected was the team that went to Athens, and it was quite a different looking team. So it was almost like starting from scratch again. So the guy that coached that team was a guy, Ian Rutledge. And Ian was the first Aussie guy that had been involved in the New Zealand program. And I think we were always envious of the way the Australians played and were coached. And so it was fantastic to have someone like Ian or Rutto involved. And he was a guy that brought in some real tactics and probably the first to really dive into video analysis as well. Back in the day, it was Game Breaker. It's obviously advanced since then. Yeah, so he went to he took the team to Athens, and that was my first Olympics, and it was a pretty successful team. We actually got 6th, which was as good as any other New Zealand team had done. Going forward, we then went into Beijing, and it was again a change of team, and I do think at that stage the team did live off the coattails of previous teams, so there's a bit of work to do there. We didn't do well at those Olympics, and we finished 12th, which was pretty disappointing for everyone, and obviously the management and more importantly the players, they were incredibly disappointed. There then was a change of coaching staff, and that's when Mark Hagar came on board. And so Mark, again, obviously an Australian, really well-respected Australian, both in terms of his playing career. He was Australia's top goal scorer for years, and it wasn't until recent times that record was broken, but also a very good coach. So it was fantastic to have Mark on board. So he started driving the success of the team. Obviously, there was an incredibly special group of players. And as we headed into London, if you looked at the team on paper, we certainly weren't probably the strongest team that New Zealand's ever had. But they were a special group, and they were really set on achieving on the world stage. And Mark had he played a massive part in building their confidence and actually saying, "Hey, this is achievable." He certainly had a different approach from other coaches. So he was a coach that wanted to play an incredibly fast game. So attack was his philosophy. And so there was a lot of time spent in terms of physical preparation, and the team that went to London was incredibly fit. It was fast, and that's the way we played the game. We spent a lot of time on penalty corners, both defence and attacking. That was when we sort of saw the introduction of people like Clarissa Asus and Anita Punt, being able to drag flick, and we hadn't seen that before to the level they were doing, so it was fantastic. He had a very supportive management, and he had tremendous trust in management, and he demanded high standards of the management and expect them to, detail was incredibly important. I think something else that helped was our ability to play top nations in the world on a regular basis. So we were tested against the best, so your Argentinians, your Dutch, your Germans, the Australians. So, that all sort of helped in terms of preparation and results going forward. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right, cool. Look, some awesome stuff there, and I'm pretty keen to just talk about Athens Olympics. Like, what a special place to go to, like essentially the birthplace of the Olympics, and a very successful one. What were some of the things that helped that team? Because that was obviously part of the foundation that set them up for success, and we're going to dive in deeper around, making the semi-finals and 2 Olympics. But obviously Athens was a big foundation. Do you want to talk to us a bit about Athens, the Olympics, and what allowed that foundation of that team to then catapult us to where we got to and basically getting third in the world?
Yeah, sure. So Athens was incredibly special. It, for me, it's the home of the Olympics. It was my first Olympics. I never went to Olympic Games as a player. Our best chance was probably 88 in Seoul, where we didn't qualify. So Indians snuck ahead of us. So, So to go to my very first Olympics in Athens was just incredibly special. The history was still there, all those sites that you see on TV of the old Olympics and things like that, they were all sitting there, so you get to visit those sort of historic sites. Really interesting going into the village. We arrived around 13 days prior. It wasn't finished, and there was things being built, there's been grass being laid. You sort of go, God, are they going to run Olympics here?
Wow.
But yeah, when it came to it, it was fantastic. And yeah, and just I guess you're in terms of sport, you're in utopia. It's awesome. You're seeing famous athletes. I was sort of blown away. You might walk out of your building and there's Roger Federer or something like that walking off to the dining hall. Yes. The dining hall itself was an amazing experience. You're sort of sitting in a hall that's the size of a rugby field and part of the excitement was trying to look at athletes and guess what sport they were involved in. So you had small to tall, it was quite an incredible experience. So I guess starstruck for a while.
Yep.
And I think our players were too. And I think when I look back, some of them were sort of, there was a talk around, did they deserve to be there? Were they good enough to be on the world stage? So it was trying to convince them that they were. And to the girls' credit, they played pretty well. So.
Yeah, well, it's pretty phenomenal. Get 6 at the Athens Olympics. Really just set the scene, and like we say, it was a big foundation for this team to catapult themselves to that highest ranking of 3rd. So, look, Mark took over in 2009, and that was just after the Beijing Olympics, where they'd come 12th. You talked a little bit about Mark, and he was a phenomenal player, one of the greatest goal scorers. And like you say, recently only just got past. But part of his stuff, you talked a little bit around like the player speed and being the fastest, the fittest thing. So how did Mark sort of push that across, and how did he get buy-in from the players? Because, that's, obviously he's come in as a newbie and an Australian. Obviously there'd been a foundation set from Ian Rutledge. But how did he get the playing group? And I'd be really intrigued and fascinated to find out a little bit more about, that sort of stuff there.
Sure, yeah. Mark's an incredible person. Comes across as hard as nails, but he's actually got a soft side to him. Hope he won't mind me saying that. But he's actually human. So, but he lives and breathes the game, and he's a guy you never want a room with, because you wake up in the middle of the night, he's looking at the game or trying to critique his game plan and things like that. So, my very first coaching experience with Mark was where it was basically his first international in the North Island. We'd lost, and I'm walking off the pitch with him and said, "Oh, that was a pretty good performance." He goes, "No, CO, we lost, so it's not good enough." So I thought straight away, he's setting really high standards here, like second's not good enough. So that was a really quick insight into Mark and the way he was thinking. He, as I sort of mentioned earlier on, he was very good at coordinating staff that he could trust and rely on. So there was a very, very good management group in place, and that's from the coaches, the video analysis, through to all the sports science providers. We were incredibly lucky in that period that we had strong people in that area. He installed a work ethic in the team, and they brought into that. The team brought into that. So he trained them incredibly hard, and his, as I alluded to, his philosophy was around being fast and fit, and he had the ability to get players to buy into that. And at international level, the reality is you have to do that. There were some players that didn't quite meet Mark's standards in terms of that. So that's, as we know, selection becomes incredibly hard. But again, he stuck with a group that were very, very good in that space. So
no, nice.
Yeah.
It sounds like he obviously held everybody account. But he obviously held a trust model as well, so it wasn't sort of like micromanaging. And like you say, we're talking about high performance sport here. So like if you aren't meeting the standards, it's not like, hey, we want everyone to be participating. We've got to be the best, and in order to be the best, you've got to train and have that mentality, and accountability is going to be pretty part and parcel of that. So in order to obviously change the fitness level and everything, what did a general week look like for these athletes? Because obviously they've gone from Beijing. Was there many drastic changes in the training general week? And what did it look like for those players?
Yeah, so that's when the coach had unlimited access to the players. It's changed a little bit now, and some would argue that's for the good. And we talk about our athlete welfare, and that's awesome. So with Mark, it was around a typical training week. They were based in Auckland, which is a centralised model, which there's a lot of discussion around whether that's the right model or not. If I'm being really selfish, if I was the head coach, I'd want them all based in where I was based as well, or so we can work together as a team. Yeah, so the strength and conditioning coaches would have a big part in training. They would they'd have GPS units on the players, so there was accurate measures of output. So trainings were based around what sort of output was required. So there'd be you may have heard of sort of the green, orange, red trainings.
Yes,
So
yes.
probably depending on the periodisation of the team, there would be red trainings where it was full on. So often that was combined with conditioning, but bringing that conditioning into the hockey environment. So training under fatigue, those sort of things. There's days where orange, it might be a bit lighter, and days where it was green, so you might be working more on a set play situation. So yeah, there was there was a real mix of that S&C and hockey.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, cool. No, it's great to hear. And yeah, like you say, there are a lot of changes in the way we're running our hockey programs with decentralisation. But obviously, Mark was in a special place, and having all the athletes up there, and like we say, there's pros and cons of it all. So we're always going to have a little debate about that.
And I think the other thing that Mark brought to the game, what I know he did,
Yes.
was his technical awareness was sort of next level. And I'd worked with sort of 5 coaches in my 20-year reign, if you like.
Yeah.
So tactically, he was incredibly good. He had the ability to change tactics during a match. That was probably what I think set him as one of the things that set him aside from some of the other coaches that I'd been involved with.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You talked also a little bit about your penalty corner A and D, and I know that you had a big part in that. Like, what were some of the things that helped you really analyse some of these international teams, but then also get the better of them? Like, I'd love to be able to sort of share with our community a bit about some of those things and the tactics, or the way that you created a workflow to allow you to analyse these teams, because I think that'll be super valuable as well for our community. So.
Yeah, so there was a massive amount of time spent on scouting opposition, and that was both from management and players. So the players were expected to know who they're playing against, the attributes of those players. The scouting meetings were very, very important. And then so the assistant roles, coaches' roles were around, we were divided into various areas of the field. And one of mine was certainly penalty corner attack. So again, scouting the opposition, picking up running patterns, where we can exploit the opposition, and then bringing that into training environments. It was always a tough one too, because with our attacking PCs, often we, as coaches, we don't practice with a defence.
Yes.
But Mark's philosophy was, you do practice with a defence, and there's always a risk involved in that, I guess, in terms of injury and that sort of thing. But I guess with the protection that players have these days, that's minimal now. But that was probably something that set us aside from possibly other teams where we did practice under full conditions.
Yep.
There was always obviously opportunities too when we're home base that we brought in under 18 men's players and people like that we could use as well, which was fantastic.
Oh, brilliant.
We could injure them and not our own players. No, only joking.
Nice, especially going into a big series against Argentina or one of the European nations. Brilliant. And just I want to dive a little bit deeper into the PC stuff. Like, for players out there, everyone wants to obviously be the drag flicker or the person who hits it in.
Yep.
But there's so many other important roles, because if you don't inject or trap it, the drag flickers don't get their glory. And obviously, you've got to run the variations as well in order for the drag flickers to score goals, because if you're not changing things, the opposition pick up on that. Do you want to talk a little bit about, for players, what would you sort of encourage some players to do? Is it taking on at least 2 or 3 roles, or having backups and so forth, so you can be involved in multiple pieces?
Yeah, I think if you're a player looking to be selected in a side, if you have got set play skills, maybe that's attacking PC skill or a defensive PC skill or a shootout skill now, I think it's incredibly important. There's no shortcut to it. You've got to train. And yeah, as you've said, Sanj, around injections, that's probably the number one thing. If you can't inject the ball properly, that's going to have issues for your set piece play. So to be able to inject with ball speed, accuracy is incredibly important. And then obviously you've got someone trapping the ball and then delivery off that. The other thing I think is incredibly important too is bravery in attacking PCs. So we ask players to get in there and deflect balls, and you need to be brave to do that. And you also need to have trust in your teammates that it's going to be delivered to where the variation's meant to be delivered to. So, so for me, it is practice. And I think if you can come along and be incredibly proficient at one of those attacking PC skills, that's going to, one, help you in terms of selection, two, it's going to help your team, and three, hopefully you're going to be starting to convert more penalty corners.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. It's great insight and some real good gold nuggets around, the PC injections and also that ability to be brave, especially, and have that trust as well in your group. So, brilliant. Now, you talked a little bit around like the management and the way that Mark enabled you people to really lead some of your areas. What were some of the things that helped the head coach? Because I think that's going to be might be a great thing for our coaches listening out there. How to manage your staff, because how do you work with the assistant coaches? How much autonomy do you pass them on? And how can you hold them accountable? And what did Mark do in those periods? Because you obviously were right at the coalface, being one of those people.
Yeah, so it sort of reflects on Mark too in terms of his organisation. So regular staff meetings. Particularly in my case, because I was based in Christchurch, particularly when we're on tour. So that was a sort of an evening and a morning just to make sure the plans were in place. Again, Mark was incredibly organised, and he, in terms of planning, he was planning 4 years out. Like he knew what was likely to happen, what could happen, what's the ramifications of winning, losing, what does that mean to world rankings, etc. So incredibly well planned, incredibly well organised. So he would appoint each staff member a role, whether you're the manager, the analyst, the assistant coach, the goalkeeper coach, whatever. So you knew your role, and that was he was very good at giving you responsibility for that role. And then you'd play a part in bringing that role back into the team environment. So I guess it's around accountability.
Yes.
He during matches, the staff were radioed up. So often, because you're limited to the number of management you can have on your bench, often I'd be in the sand observing. But again, it was trying to provide feedback that was going to make a difference rather than just chatter.
Yes.
And I think that's really important as an assistant. You don't want to just be talking in the coach's ear. And I have seen times where Mark's ripped the earpiece out of him and just trying to concentrate on what he's doing. Yeah. So that becomes important. So, I think making sure you're clear in your role and you're giving your best in that role is incredibly important to your management group.
Yeah, brilliant. Perfect. Okay. Look, during this period, you went to the London Olympics, come fourth, narrowly missing out on a medal. And then went to Beijing as well in 2016. Sorry, not Beijing, sorry, Brazil, Rio in 2016 and came fourth. Do you want to talk us through both of those Olympics? And you talked about, the 4-year planning cycle and what sort of things you people implemented that helped you, obviously maintain it. Obviously, it was hugely disappointed to not get a medal, being so close again. But there must have been some great things to maintain that standard over a 4-year period.
Yeah, the London, like I talked about, Athens being special. For me, in terms of an Olympic experience. I thought London was outstanding. I thought they had done it incredibly well. The village was the athletes' village was a little bit different to what we'd experienced in the past. So you could walk to one of the biggest shopping centres in the world, just probably 500 metres away.
Wow.
You could walk out of the village and be suddenly in the Olympic, what would you call it, common area, I guess. So you're mixing with the public, which was awesome. So it was fantastic. So we could walk from our accommodation to the hockey turf. So that was pretty special. The game, we played pretty well there. And I still think probably one of the most exciting games of hockey I've ever seen or been part of as a coach was playing the Dutch in a semi-final, and you're seconds away of potentially getting at least a bronze medal. So, your heart's racing, everything's going, this is cool. It went to a shootout, and we lost the shootout. So went from incredibly high emotions and going, hey, this is bloody awesome.
Yep.
We're in here. We're playing really well. We're going to do this. To just heart sinking. And this particular match, I was right up on top of the video platform, so sort of looking over the whole ground and the Olympic village, if you like, and just shaking my head to myself, thinking, geez, we just missed a really, really fantastic opportunity. Yeah. So the challenge is getting the athletes up for the third and fourth match, and you're still in contention for a medal here. We didn't do it well, so we went out and played GB and lost, and so got fourth. Everyone was obviously really, really disappointed. So, we're sitting there going, well, we're never going to do this again. We're not going to be in the same situation. So for the next 4 years, a lot of what Mark had put in place, a lot of it was around that mental side of the game, and how can we prepare athletes and how can they prepare themselves to be better mentally and get themselves up for the big occasions. So really confident going into Rio, and unfortunately it was almost like history repeated itself. So we lost our semi-final. And then thought, hey, we've learnt lessons from London, where we're going to be sweet going into the third versus fourth playoff against Germany. And unfortunately, the same thing happened. We didn't play as well as we'd been playing, and our hearts were broken again.
Yeah.
So ending up fourth again. So I guess in hindsight, you look back and go, what mentally could we have done better? It's hard. Honestly, it's really hard to put your finger on what that is. I think there was nothing. We had some fantastic players. The team was playing well. We were confident. Were we too confident? Not sure. I don't think so. But we just unfortunately didn't get up for the match.
Yeah. So, as a coach, and no doubt the coaches listening here would have been in those situations where you narrowly lose matches, and obviously the stakes are a lot higher because you've put years and years of effort. But as a coach, how do you help your athletes at that point? After a game and they've lost it and they're just truly spent. What are some of the things that you as a coach would do in that situation?
Yeah, so for me, my personal opinion is, as long as I've felt that the athletes have given 100 and done as well as they can, I can't ask for any more than that. Okay, so then it's around reassuring them that, hey, you have done your best. Hey, you've done everything physically possible to try and get the result. Sport's so fickle. We know that it's one shootout or one try or one little moment in a game that can be the difference between winning and losing. And we've seen it in all levels of hockey, obviously, and all levels of sport. So I guess it's around, and just ensuring that the players have given their best and just congratulating them on giving their best. There's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser. Keep your heads high if you've lost. Keep your heads high. Keep your dignity. It's nothing against you as a person. It's nothing against you as in your team. It's around just going, hey, we gave it all. Let's move on.
Yeah, no, that's really good, and I think it's so important now. If you know truly in your heart, and the players do that, they've given that they're all. You can't do a huge amount, and just reassuring them and sticking true to your values and what you believe in is so important. So, look, during this period, and I talked a little bit about it at the start, I was really keen to talk about Kayla Charlin and Stacey Mickelson. Like, for me, and arguably for other people, would see as probably our two best women's hockey players that have graced our game. What was it that set them apart from others?
Yeah, I reckon it's a fantastic observation. Like, you have highlighted two players that are pretty special. Knowing that I was doing this little podcast,
yes,
I bet you asked me this question. So I've actually named 5 players in my involvement at the top level that I think have been influential. And look, there's others as well. There's no doubt about that. And there's players before these players. But yep, top of the list for me is Kayla Whitelock or Kayla Charlin. Her leadership that she brought to the group, her passion, her plays by example, leads by example. She's next level. She's fantastic, and the respect that she commanded from the girls was fantastic. You won't get better. Very very honest person. Had to fight through injury to ensure that she continued playing. 4 Olympic Games, not many players do that. I saw Kayla play her first international, and I saw her play her last international. Oh, wow. So unfortunately, her last was an injury, which ruled her out. So that was really sad. But over the time, she was fantastic. Stacey Mickelson, she, in my opinion, during my time, was one of the best players in the world. She had an X factor about her game. She was a little bit like Aymar from Argentina. They were freakish. Yes. They could do things that you don't see other athletes do. Her ability to split a game open with her skill and deceptiveness and pace was fantastic. Again, a great person. Yep. I've put in my list of 5.
Yeah, your Mount Rushmore.
Yep,
yeah, nice.
Yep, Susie Muirhead.
Oh yes,
yep.
Yes.
So, or Susie Pearce back in the day. Again, Susie was a player that didn't arrive on the stage with exceptional talent or skill, and she won't mind me saying that. But to see a player, and it had a lot to do with Susie because my involvement in Wellington hockey, watch her progress, and she her willingness to just train the house down was next level. She was incredibly professional in everything she did, and was a good hockey player as well, obviously, and got better and better as her career went on. Another fantastic leader and someone that led by example and is the ultimate professional in terms of her preparation and life outside hockey and all those sort of things was Sam Charlton, or Sam Child as she is now. Another player that earned the respect of her teammates. Sam was a great person. And bit of a random one here, but for me, Anita Punt. So again, I knew Anita pretty well. I coached her at a club level in Wellington when she was involved with the Wellington Indians there, and at a NHC level with Capital back in those days. So the reason I've listed Anita is just I thought she brought drag flicking into the game. She was a good exponent of that, and I think that was important for our team at that stage. And she was incredibly athletic. So,
Yeah, wow, you've named some phenomenal players, and yeah, it's been amazing because all of these people have different things, and I think when you look at someone like Susie, who didn't have a huge amount of talent, well, didn't come with all the attributes, but worked very hard and just grinded. That's great to hear. Got people like Anita who just had this natural speed, but then really worked hard on the craft of drag flicking.
Yep.
And at that stage in the women's game, drag flicking wasn't much, but it set you apart, and you can even still see now. How much impact that is, and then players like Stacey who just had these freakish abilities and the quickness of her hands to beat players in that midfield and set up a quick forward attack for the rest of the players was just phenomenal. And then someone like Kayla, who was just a pure athlete and going 4 Olympic Games. Like, there's not many athletes that could play a sport like hockey, which is highly demanding of the body, and being able to do that through the years. And then obviously Sam Child as well, and it's great to see that her she's still involved in the game as well and getting involved in some coaching like Kayla as well. So yeah, brilliant. That's awesome to hear about those people and some of the things that have set them apart, which is great. Now this, I guess, is probably a good opportunity just to talk about, what's happening now since we've got you in. And I'd love to be able to get you in again, but I'm really keen to sort of dive into, you are now the head coach of the Alpiners in a new Premier Hockey League that's just started in New Zealand. You've got a game on tomorrow, but I'm really keen to just talk about that and the opportunity to get back involved in this and something quite new. What excites you about the PHL and coaching the Premier Hockey League Alpine and Women's team? Yeah,
it's actually awesome to get back into it in a head role. I've been involved with the Canterbury Cats for a long time, assisting. So a couple of things that happened this year. One, yes, is being appointed to the Alpiners women's head role was fantastic, and also jumped back into the junior black stick space or the future black sticks space. So just been to Japan with the group, so assisting Verity Charland. So the PHL, I reckon, is incredibly exciting. I just think the ability to take the game around New Zealand is awesome. So if you look at our road, we've been down to Dunedin last weekend. We're here at Napunawai tomorrow. Next weekend we're in Wellington. We're up in the Waikato in Auckland, and then back to Christchurch, back to Auckland. So it's sort of quite cool. And from a coaching point of view, it's awesome because you have the ability to work on your game during the week. We're in a national hockey championship situation. You prepare for 8 weeks, you bang into tournament, and it's game on type thing. Where this is awesome, where you can spend the week preparing your team for the next challenge and working on things that you can refine. Yeah, so really, really exciting. There's a buzz around New Zealand about it. Yeah, it's awesome. You just watching or following some of the Instagram posts from all the franchises is really cool. And Dunedin last weekend was great. There was Alpina signage everywhere, and the community got into it. So really, really exciting times. I love the fact that it's played in November, December. You can have a barbecue and a beer in the sun and watch the game. How cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, so and from a really personal point of view, I love being able to coach with a T-shirt on, rather than my hoodie and jacket. So last Thursday night at the park, it's 9:30 at night, I'm still sitting there in a T-shirt. So how cool.
Yeah.
So and for me personally as a coach, taking on a head role is a massive challenge, as it always is. I'm still learning, which one of the reasons I carry on coaching. I learnt lessons last week. Hopefully I can apply them this week with the team. But just exciting. I'm really excited about PHL. I think it's a fantastic concept and opportunity for everyone involved.
Yeah, no, it sure is. And great foresight from New Zealand Hockey to create a competition like this, see the top sort of, you could say 80 players on the men's and then 80 players on the women's side, all going at it over a 6-week period. And out on TVNZ, which is great. We can get more public and great game times, It's brilliant. So, yeah, awesome. Look, a couple of things that I just want to finish off, a couple of real fascinating questions I'm keen to ask you. Look, coaching has changed a huge amount over the years. And to even think when you're talking about Ian Rutledge and him bringing in video, to now we're talking about GPSs and things. I'd love to hear where you think coaching could go in the future, and where you see coaching, because you've obviously coached for a number of years, and no doubt being someone who is still a curious learner, wants to get better at his coaching and his craft, which is awesome to hear. Where do you see coaching going in the future?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting, isn't it? We look at AI today. Will that play a part? I think you got to be careful with AI, and I've already heard it where people go, "Oh, I've got a training tonight. I'm just going to type in a couple of questions into AI and get a response and a training plan." I actually think that's lazy. So I think we have to be careful in that space. Hey, you can glean knowledge from it. That's awesome. I think, the game's forever changing, and a thing about hockey, I think the willingness to change rules to make it exciting is good. And even in the PHL, you're seeing it a bit like the Aussie A1, where you score a field goal, you're encouraged to score a field goal, and then you get a shootout opportunity or shootout conversion opportunity. I think so. The rules are evolving is awesome. From a personal point of view, get rid of the aerials into the circle.
Nice.
Yeah. I think that's detrimental personally, and it's such a tough call on umpires as well to get that right. Looking forward to when they put the microchip in the hockey ball, so you can just push the button and all your balls come flying back to you at training.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. No, I think on a more serious note around, hey, are you going to put a chip in the ball and you're going to measure ball speed and projection? Is it going to help in video referrals? Has the ball crossed the line, or little wee things like that?
Yes.
Where will we get to the stage where maybe the umpires are wearing some sort of goggles that gives them a better view of the game? And that's not, I'm not being detrimental to umpires at all. It's around helping. Because they've got a very, very hard job. It's a fast game.
Ooh,
so
yes.
those sort of things. Equipment, obviously, that's always going to be changing, and gone for the days where if you had a really bendy stick, that was so cool. Now, with the carbon fibre sticks, etc., the ball composition, goalkeeping equipment, that's good. Probably the next thing I guess we'll see is dry turfs. And there was talk of trying to get one in for Paris. So, what effect will that have on the game, on the equipment again? So, so I guess every time there's a rule change in hockey, as coaches, we've got to adapt to that. How can we utilise that rule? So that's sort of exciting times, and that is the cool thing about hockey is it's forever changing. So you've got to change as well. If you sit back and just go, hey, I'm going to do the same old, you're going to get the same old result probably, and sometimes that's not ideal.
No, that's awesome. It's great to hear some of those insights. And, mate, a chip and a ball to bring them back, that would be absolute gold, because the amount of hockey balls that people are constantly looking for, they're either...
Oh, you want to see how many I've got with Hornby on them.
Oh, that's so good. I'm sure JT will be asking for them back shortly, no doubt. Look, final question, and it's probably just around... your coaching, why? Why are you still doing it after all these years, and you continue to want, and I think this is just an amazing trait of yours, to want to get better at coaching, looking at new roles. How can I continue to be the best? Why do you keep doing it?
Number one, enjoyment. If I'm not enjoying it, it would be time to step aside, because I think if you're not enjoying it, that's going to reflect on your athletes. I just absolutely love it. The second reason is just wanting to help players reach their potential and beyond. So whatever that potential is, whatever age group it is, I think so motivating for me. So hockey has been my life. I've pretty much been involved since I've been 20 years old. And when you see players progress, like to give you like a recent example, Emily Gaddam, who was in the Black Sticks, I coached her. Her and I were assistant coaches in Japan. How cool is that?
Yes.
So you've seen a player now become a coach. So you see the development of the progression and people involved in hockey's fantastic. You see, in the office the other day, we're looking at Gareth Greenfield when he was 10 playing hockey in Gore. Look at him now; he's one of the best umpires in the world.
Yes.
So you're involved in that.
Yeah.
I think the other cool thing about hockey is it's a family sport. Anyone can play it. You go down to the park and you just see a whole lot of different people involved. I think that's motivating. And if I wasn't coaching, I don't know what I'd do. So and I love just trying to learn the whole time and just you see different things and trying to put that into practice. And I think the other thing too that you learn coaching is life skills. So you're dealing with a whole variety of individuals, and every individual's different, thank goodness. So for me, being able to learn how to communicate, how to help, is incredibly motivating as well.
Yeah, awesome. No, it's great to hear the insight on why you continue to keep coaching. And look, I've been lucky enough to coach against you and now doing a little bit of work and seeing you out on the coaching field. You can see you're in your happy place. You see how when you're out there, you're just enjoying, you're smiling, you've got a great rapport with athletes, and it's phenomenal. Like I'm truly blessed to have the opportunity to obviously work with you, bring you into the podcast and share some of these great stories with our great community. And I think, thank you again for coming on. And look, for the community, thanks so much for listening into today's first podcast. We've had some great things and listening to see our talk about the Olympic Games, going from Athens to Rio in a 4-year span, where they had the Beijing and the London Olympics, where the New Zealand Black Sticks, got to the highest world ranking that we've ever had, which was 3rd. There was some phenomenal things, hearing a bit about Mark Hagar and what he was able to do with his accountability on the athletes, the way he drove high standards, had a huge amount of belief in the athletes, but allowed the autonomy for his management staff to really take on their roles, and it was a really big team effort. So those things are great to hear. I think, we heard great stories about Kayla. We also heard about Stacey, as well as Sam and Anita and also Susie. 5 of some great players that have come through this phenomenal period that New Zealand women's hockey have had. And look, it's exciting to see what they can do in the future. Obviously, at the moment, we've probably missing out on the Olympics this year was pretty tough. But I think with great people like CL involved in our game, no doubt we're going to see this team progress and hopefully in the future get up higher than 3 and maybe attain an Olympic medal, which would be great. And look, CL, who knows? You could be the coach leading them there. Someone who wants to keep learning, keep getting better, and still getting himself in a lot of roles. So we're truly blessed to have this legend, Chris Lizzie, come into our podcast on our first show. So look, thanks everyone for being involved, and look forward to bringing you episode 2 in the near future. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Hunch.